for Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. It's your final word on sports all across the state. Here's your host, Phil Kornblue.
It means a little bit, you know.
Kornblue.
It means a little bit, you know.
You're up for Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. It's your final word on sports all across the state. Here's your host, Phil Kornblue.
It means a little bit, you know. It's usually when I get some stuff like this, it's usually in losses, so you don't really get to enjoy it. But you know, tonight, 1,000 hits, it's pretty cool. I'll probably reflect more on it later on in life, but right now it's just nice to get the win. No big hits for the team.
Oh, Freddie Freeman, 1,000 career hits for the Braves, accomplishing that mark last night as the Braves, after about a 3-hour rain delay, 3:05 to be exact, where there was no rain, a little bit of sprinkle, but they kept waiting for the downpour. It never happened. Started that game up around 10 o'clock at Nationals Park, and the Braves won. Braves were only 8.5 back. You really have to give the Braves a lot of credit. You know, we're not talking as much about the Braves right now as we have in the past because they haven't been very good lately. But they are starting to turn it a little bit with that win last night against Washington, with Fultonevich pitching 6 strong innings and Kurt Suzuki having a homer and a double, and Freeman with a couple of RBI doubles, and as I mentioned, the 1,000th hit of his career. They closed within 8.5. It's still a large spread, but at least the Braves are showing life and are showing some competitiveness this season with a team that they've just sort of pieced together here and there, older guys, younger guys, and listen, they've done nothing to embarrass themselves this year in their new park, a record of 41-43. They've actually won, last year or in recent history at Nationals Park, it's been a house of horrors for the Braves, but they have now won, I think, 3 out of 4 at that park this season. So they'll go at it again tonight in Washington. Braves 41-43. Nationals are 50-35. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. On a Friday night, you know what this is? I'm talking to all you men in the audience across the state. This is your last night of freedom. When we reconvene on Monday, it's football. SEC, they moved it way up. SEC Media Days begins on Monday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we double up on Thursday with ACC Media Days. How crazy is Thursday going to be for us here at Sports Talk? We'll have SEC Media Days with the Gamecocks on hand, and we'll have ACC Media Days in Charlotte with the Tigers on hand. All of that to be covered for you right here on Sports Talk at SportsTalkSC.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. So make us part of your enjoyment of the build-up to the season. I mean, heck, I enjoy the build-up as much as I enjoy the season. Talking about it, speculating about it, wondering who's going to do what individually from a team standpoint. In fact, want to have a little fun with that tonight in our first hour and take your phone calls, 800-956-7266, 800-956-7266. Want to play the quick game of best and worst case scenario for your favorite team in 2017. Your best case scenario for the Tigers, if you're a Clemson fan, for the Gamecocks, if you're a Gamecock fan, or any of the other teams in our state, if you're a Citadel fan, Furman, Wofford, South Carolina State, any of them. Give me your best case, worst case scenario, how you see your team matching up against your schedule here in 2017. 800-956-7266, 800-956-7266. If you want to communicate over Twitter at SportsTalkSC, and if you want to go through email, it's talkback@sportstalksc.com. A lot of things to catch you up on as well. We've got racing in northern Kentucky. Qualifying will be getting underway shortly at Kentucky Speedway. Today in the last round of practice, it was Larson leading the way at 188 miles an hour. He was the only one in the last round of practice to top 188 miles per hour. And then as far as the PGA tournament is concerned, second round of the Greenbrier Classic in beautiful West Virginia, and Ben Martin is hanging in there. We'll give you an update on the leaderboard in just a moment. The lead has gotten to 12 under as Munoz went to low again today after his 61 yesterday. He had a 67 today. And so everybody else is trying to keep pace with him. And we will give you the complete update on the leaderboard coming up in just a little bit. So those are the two major things going on. And, of course, Wimbledon. You know, we used to pay a lot of attention to Wimbledon, give you all the scores, the results, and stuff like that back in the old days, but no need to do that now. Everybody's got access to that information. There is a young player from Charleston, Shelby Rogers, I believe is her name, Shelby Rogers, and she won yesterday. I don't know if she was playing today, but she's done extremely well in the tournament so far, and it's nice to have. I can remember many years ago, there was a player from Greenville who was really good and won some matches at Wimbledon. And, gosh, her name escapes me. She was one of the best tennis players to come out of our state on the professional level on the women's side. And I'm going to have to think on it now because Shelby did win today. Mm-hmm. She won the 32nd seed, who I will not attempt to pronounce the name, Lucia Safarova. Is that right? Mm-hmm. 32nd seed, and now she gets the number 1 seed. That was today. She played today. Okay. Pat Daniel behind the scenes tonight giving me that information. So she continues to do extremely well. Who was the lady from up in Greenville? Her last name was similar to the big construction company. Somebody's got to call me and tell me who that was from up in Greenville back in the day. I'm talking back in the 80s. And she went to Wimbledon and won a few matches and advanced through the tournament. Maybe even got as far as the semifinals, quarterfinals or semifinals. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. And a couple of other things. If you want to watch some basketball tonight, well, ESPN is going to televise the matchup in the Las Vegas Summer League of the NBA of the Clippers and the Lakers. That means P.J. Dozier and Sindarius Thornwell will be going up against one another. Thornwell with the Clippers and Dozier trying to make it with the Lakers. Frank Martin plans to be there to watch his two former stars go at it, and that will tip off at the Thomas and Mack Center at about 8:30 Eastern Time. The NBA Summer League certainly can be a very important time for these guys who are not drafted in the first round, trying to make a team. It's so hard to make an NBA roster these days if you're not a first-round pick, especially if you're an older guy. You've got the influence of the younger people. You've got the influence of the influx of the foreign talent coming in, and it's a small roster. It's what, 13 on an NBA roster. So there's not a lot of space. And sometimes if you can show out in the NBA Summer League, you can get yourself an invitation to the training camp, and then you go from there. So Thornwell and Dozier, it's possible they'll end up guarding one another. And, of course, they know each other's moves extremely well. That would be something to watch. That's at 8:30 tonight. Jerron Blossom game, the former Clemson standout, according to an ESPN report, is going to be sent to the Austin Spurs. That's San Antonio's what's called the G League now. formerly the what's the NBA's developmental league, but they don't used to call it the D League, but they changed it to the G League. I guess maybe they thought D League had too much negativity to it, but now it's called the G League. And he's going to go to the Austin, Texas Spurs to start out this coming season. He was the 29th pick of the second round, the 58th pick. I'm sorry, the 59th pick overall. And in baseball this afternoon, the Braves and the Cubs and the Pirates playing at Wrigley, and looks like the Cubbies are going to get this one. They're up 6-1 in the ninth inning at Wrigley. 800-956-7266. What do you think? Best case, worst case scenarios for your team. Back in a moment. You know, I'm just a simple man with a very small brain. In fact, doctors said when I was born, told my parents that I had a unusually small brain. So I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, the brightest bulb on the tree. And thanks to a caller, I should have known this. Of course, the G League has something to do with the sponsorship, Gatorade. It's the NBA Gatorade League. But see, nobody explained that to me. I must have been away from the country when that was announced. But that is what the G League is. It's sponsored by Gatorade. Has nothing to do with the embarrassment of being part of the D League. It's the G League sponsored by Gatorade, which is fine. Gatorade is a perfectly wonderful beverage. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Looking for your phone calls. Love to hear from you tonight on the eve of football season around here. Well, a couple of days, Monday, but basically our last show before we dive headfirst into football. Think about it. You've got all next week media days, okay, and then you come back. That's the next week is the 17th, and then we'll be talking about what we talked about at media days, and I think that's the week that I think Dabo Sweeney's golf tournament is that week. We'll have that covered for you. And then you come back the next week, 17-24, that week, South Carolina opens practice on the 27th. And also the week before that, USC and Clemson have big events for recruits to come in and pay their respects and try and grab some more commitment. So it's coming at us fast, ladies and gentlemen. Buckle up. Give me your best case scenario. USC, Clemson, or any other team in the state that you like to follow and you feel like you know something about. 800-956-7266. Dan, who is traveling around the state today. Welcome into Sports Talk tonight. How are you?
I'm doing great, Corn. Thanks for asking.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to tell you, it was Nancy Juergens who you're thinking about as a tennis player.
Yes, yes.
I went to junior high school with her, so I know a little bit about her. She was an excellent tennis player.
Yes, she was.
And I'm a Gamecock fan from I live in Smithville, North Carolina, up in Ray Tanner's old stomping ground up there. But I think we'll be best case maybe 8-4, worst case 5-7, something like that.
Okay, in your best case scenario of 8-4, can you name your losses?
Florida, Georgia, unfortunately Clemson, and Tennessee, I guess. Yeah. Tennessee
on the road. I could see that. 8-4. Do you think, as a Gamecock fan, do you think Gamecock fans would sign up for that right now? Would they take season bowl win in there to get the 9 wins? Would that be satisfactory?
Absolutely, to me. Absolutely. From where we've come from. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if South Carolina got to 9 wins this year, including a nice bowl victory, you would certainly use that for recruiting purposes. That would help you in recruiting, give you a lot of momentum, a lot to build on. And then you look at your team the next year. Bentley would be a junior. All those receivers would be back. The running backs would be back. On the offensive line, you'd have to replace one on the offensive line, just Helms. You figure you get better on the offensive line. And then the recruiting, this is where the recruiting has got to pay off, because the influx of talent they're recruiting on the defensive side will start to kick in, and you should get even better on defense. You really look at 2018 as a chance to really win the East if you're South Carolina. I think that's kind of – you use this year as a stepping stone and then look at 2018 as that year where you can break through.
I think so, as long as we can improve the defense a bit.
Yeah, well, defense has got a long way to come to be championship caliber. Still a long way. Now, maybe they'll show it this year, but they've got to get better at pass rushing. No question about that. If they get better at rushing the passer, then they'll be better at defending the pass. The two go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking my call,
Thank
Warren.
you, sir. Thank you. Good hearing from you. And Nancy Jurgen, yes. Great tennis player out of Greenville. I was thinking of Jurgen Construction Company. I guess that's family. But she made her own name on the tennis courts of the country and the world. She was really, really good back in the 80s and maybe even into the 90s. All right, thank you. So he sees a best-case scenario. He sees a best-case scenario for the Gamecocks of 8-4, and what did he say his worst case was? Did he say 5-7? 5-7 for his worst case. I'm more inclined to lean towards his positive view of things. To Miami to go. We go. And let's welcome in. You know what? I'm going to treat him nicely tonight. No negativity. It's Oliver Francis, trash-talking Tiger to some, something else to us, but because he's doing a good deed coaching a very fine Little League team out of the Midlands, and they had a good day. You guys had a good day today, Mr. Francis.
Oh, yes, Phil. We had a great day, man. My kids, I thought they were going to be sluggish, but they came out this morning, beat the team from Connecticut 15-5. But I said, well, they weren't that good. I said, well, I hope we be competitive in the 1:30 game. We played a Little League team from California who had just got knocked out of the region, and so they came to the youth All-Star Classic. And we came out the blocks. We gave up 2 runs in the first inning. Pitcher settled down. The starting pitcher, he got upset stomach. And I went to the other guy. He shut him down. They scored 1 run. We scored 8. We beat them 8-3, man. We turned 2 double plays, man. I couldn't believe it. These kids, man. And it's a bunch of kids, and this is rec ball. This not travel ball.
Yeah.
None of these kids are playing travel ball.
Yeah.
They play for the Columbia Youth Baseball League in the city of Columbia, man.
Yeah.
We grind for like a month. I'm saying this. My second baseman, I couldn't believe it. He made one of those long side Junior Gilliam play.
Yeah.
The ball was up the middle, man. He knocked the ball down. He picked it up on his knees and threw the man out at first base. I'm saying this. The first baseman did a heck of a job stretching. Then on a double play, the shortstop, and we call this guy named CC, man. He went heck of a ball, Bailey. The ball hit up the middle. He grabbed it. He didn't even think about throwing the second baseman. He tied second base and gutted the first. Man, they played a heck of a ball game. So,
It's all about the coaching. It's all about the coaching, right?
Oh, yeah. So we play a lot of small ball. We did a lot of bunting. Oh, man. We laid puffy bunts down, and we scored on the bunt. So, we play a lot of small ball. Tomorrow going to be a true test for us. We play a team from Alabama, Oxford, Alabama. They're hosting the Dix Youth World Series. So that's going to be a challenge for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we beat California. California beat Alabama in the first ball game, but that doesn't mean the Hill of Beans is a different day. But I think our kids up to the challenge. They gel. I was worried about them coming in because all of them play for different teams. We got 9 parks in the city of Columbia, and we select kids from each one of those parks. I'm saying this to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I just said we represent the state of South Carolina and the city of Columbia well.
Absolutely. And you got a chance, if you can win tomorrow, you got a chance to win a championship on Sunday?
Yeah. Well, there's only 2 teams undefeated. And the team that is undefeated, we play them on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
The Miami Marlins. We play the Miami Marlins on Sunday. So it's going to be a challenge. The next 3 ball games going to be a challenge, especially 10:30 in the morning.
Well, take care of business, and let us know Monday night how everything went.
Appreciate it. Tell everybody from South Carolina, Columbia, we love you, and we see you on Tuesday.
Does that mean Gamecocks too? Are you saying you love Gamecocks too?
No, I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that. No. Don't get this mixed up now.
Okay. We're going to stick.
Tigers. Matter of fact, the guy who was driving our bus, Champion has the contract. He's from Seneca. He's a Clemson man.
Well, I'm not surprised. We'll be right back. Everybody, hello. Welcome back into Sports Talk, everybody. Here on a Friday night, everybody's feeling loosey-goosey with the weekend coming up upon us, and you know that football will be here soon. The NFL camps will start to open up around the country here in a couple of weeks. We got SEC and ACC media days coming up next week. It's a reason to be excited. We now have something once again to live for around here. Not that we don't live for the other sports. They are important too. As a matter of fact, saw this on CBSSports.com. Of course, there's a couple of different ways of measuring how schools do overall in sports in any given season. You know, you've got your Learfield Cup, you've got your there's another all sports trophy awarded to teams at the end of the year. And CBSSports.com has also done what they call best in college sports. And this might surprise you. Now, this is, I'm thinking based on their story that this might be the first time they've done this. It says, we here at CBS Sports decided to find out which athletic program had the best season in 16-17, an odd season in which no one program truly dominated the collegiate landscape, as has been the case in the past. Left us with our closest results ever, so they have done this before. Florida State edged Florida in large part due to the success of women's basketball. They were closely followed by Southern Cal, which CBSSports.com erroneously refers to as USC. Well, here's the rest of it. No sense reading all this garbage. It's a weighted formula. Football is 2.5 times as much in terms of points as the other sports. Men's basketball is worth twice as many points, et cetera, et cetera. Previous winners, okay. So this goes back to 2013. Louisville won it in 2013, Stanford in 14, Ohio State in 15, and Oklahoma in 16. So Florida State won it this year with Florida second. Okay, here's what they did. They rate every FBS school in 3 sports: football, men's basketball, and women's basketball. So not every sport is counted here. Football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and then 2 wild cards among the school's most successful spectator sports: baseball, softball, volleyball, soccer, gym, lacrosse, hockey, and wrestling. So that's how they do it. So with that formula, it's Florida State winning by their formula with their football at 176.25, then men's basketball, women's basketball. Then Florida was second. Southern Cal was third. Wisconsin was fourth. West Virginia was fifth. South Carolina was sixth. Think about that. South Carolina was sixth. Of course, the football was not very helpful at 62.5, but they made up for it with men's basketball at 166 points. Women's basketball got 100 points. While their wild card 1 got 73 points, and their wild card 2 got 50 points. Louisville was 7th, Stanford 8th, Michigan 9th, Ohio State 10, Clemson was 14. Of course, they got 250 points for football. But after that, the Tigers only got 20 points for men's basketball, 0 points for women's basketball, and then 73 and 64 points respectively for their 2 wild cards. So what they're doing, of course, is just taking the money sports, football, men's basketball, and women's basketball, and then your top 2 other sports, and looking to see who's the most successful in that with that small menu. And South Carolina fared extremely well at number 6. And Clemson, not as well at number 14. But, of course, the Tigers do have the national championship in football. But the rest of their program, their sports programs across the board, they need to pick it up a little bit. Their men's and women's basketball teams, let's face it, didn't do squat last year. And they need to turn it around and turn it around in a hurry. Their baseball team did fine getting to the tournament and getting to a regional, but disappointing that they did not get past a regional. I imagine one of their wild card teams would have been track. I think they did extremely well in track, if my memory is right. So a good showing there for South Carolina in that particular comparison, and Clemson's got to pick it up there in some ways. All right, the question is on the floor, best case, worst case scenario for your team this upcoming football season. I'll give you mine. We'll let Pat give his, and you can give us yours. 800-956-7266. 800-956-7266. I also want to give the update on the leaderboard at the tournament in West Virginia, the Greenbrier Classic. Ben Martin continues to hang in there near the top of the leaderboard. He currently is tied for second. He will go into the weekend. You know, he had a great tournament last week in the Quicken Loans National, finishing tied for fifth. Right now, he's tied for second. He put a 67 on top of that 64 yesterday. So he is 3 shots back of Sebastian Munoz, who shot a 67. Also at 9 under par is Hudson Swafford. But Ben today, I believe he started on the back side. And let me double check that. Believe he started on the back, yes. And he got off to a good start with a birdie. Took a bogey and then 3 more birdies on the back, then 1 bogey, 1 birdie on the front. Remember, this is a par 70 course to finish at 3 under 67. So a good showing for him today. He's at 9 under. Danny Lee, Russell Henley of Charleston, Davis Love III, they are all at 8 under par and still in very good shape. Let's check some of the other locals and other people that we like to follow. Bubba Watson's at 4 under after a 67. Mark Anderson, he's still on the course with 2 to go. He's at 4 under. Tommy Gainey, 2 gloves, a 68 today. He's at 2 under. I think that will make the cut. The cut was projected at -1. I'll double check that in a moment. Bill Haas is 2 under after a 69. Ben at -1. Phil Mickelson and Jonathan Bird. Bird is still on the course playing his 17th, which would be number 8. And then at +2, Kevin Kisner, Scott Brown, and Sam Saunders at +3. They're not going to make the cut. Let's see what the cut is. The cut is still projected at -1. So Jonathan Bird is on the cut line with 2 holes to go. That's got to be pretty nerve-wracking. We will have joining us at 7:05, George Bryan III with more on birdies and bogeys around the state of South Carolina. I just got through finished reading. I just got through finishing reading. I'll spit it out in Sports Illustrated about a week or 2 ago. Very nice article on Dustin Johnson and his brother, Austin Johnson. Did not realize that his brother, Austin, was a tremendous athlete as well. Played college basketball at Charleston Southern and was very, very good. And these 2 guys challenge each other over everything. You know, Austin's on his bag, and they're together all the time, and they challenge each other in every aspect of their lives, and they're good for one another. It's if you haven't read it, it's in the Sports Illustrated story with Kevin Durant on the cover after they won the NBA championship. It's buried inside that. And it's a very good portrayal, very positive portrayal of the Johnsons, their upbringing, their coaches, Weed Hill driving range over in Irmo, all these things that we hear about around here where those guys learn the game. They're all talked about in that story. Very good read. All right, we'll be back. 800-956-7266. Got some recruiting coming up for you as well. Don't go away. We are back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. They're off and running at Kentucky Speedway with their qualifying this afternoon. Kyle Busch currently is on the pole at 190.282. Matt Kenseth would be second right now at 189.740. Ryan Blaney third, Kevin Harvick fourth, and Daniel Suarez is fifth. We'll give you more, of course, on NASCAR. We'll give you the rundown on qualifying when it's over. They're into round two. And then, of course, the full Monty on NASCAR coming up at the bottom of the next hour. Let's see. What else did I want to mention here while I had a moment? Callers have dropped off. Had some folks waiting. If you want to join in, 800-956-7266 is the number. And love to get some more calls about the best and worst case scenarios in your mind for your favorite team. We'll give you ours coming up as well. You'll have something to compare with, but I'd love to hear from you. And a reminder, next week, Monday through Friday, coverage of SEC and ACC media days from Hoover, Alabama, and from Charlotte, respectively. I'll be in Hoover with the SEC, and Jarmart will be over at the ACC event for the 2 days. And next Friday, I'll be out of commission, gone somewhere. We'll have a very special substitute situation for you next week. Just chew on that a little bit. Let's go to Charles in Florence before we get to recruiting. Charles, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
Good, man. How you doing today?
Man, I couldn't be better.
I hear you better than you deserve, huh?
Yes.
I just want to talk to you a little bit about what your point system you were talking about with Clemson needs to step it up. I believe all those Tiger fans will take a national championship in football any day, any year. What you think?
Yeah.
You being a Gamecock fan.
Who's a Gamecock fan?
Aren't you a Gamecock fan?
Now, why would you say that? Why would you say that? You've already got your weekend underway there, my man. You got your weekend underway early.
There you go.
I think your judgment has been distorted a little bit. But going back to your original point, I hear you.
Right.
Going back to your original point, well, I mean, yes, you around here, you definitely want to shine in football because that's number one. But then again, as an athletic director, you're in charge of an entire array of programs, and you want to see them all do well and be competitive and compete for championships. So all I was saying was based on that standing, South Carolina with those major sports across the board by their formula, by their ranking, 6th best in the country to Clemson's 14th. So, you know, that's not – and 14's not bad either. 14,
yeah, Monty Lee is get them going. If we think we'll give Brownell one more year.
Well, you got to pick it up in basketball. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
You got to pick it up in basketball.
It wasn't tied to Dabo. I believe he'd be gone, but you know, I think we'll give him one more year and see how it goes. But we'll go get in the right direction in baseball and win another one in football. How about that?
Well, do you think they're going to win another one in football this year or another couple of years down the road?
I'm not going to go out on a limb and say this year. I say give them 2 years, they'll win more.
All right, so what is your best case for the Tigers in 2017, record-wise?
I'm going to go out and say we're going to go 10-1.
Well, you got to play 12.
We're going to lose one game, and it's going to be a big one down in Tallahassee. I believe that's what I'm going.
Well, they're coming to Clemson, but
I've got it wrong all the way around right now, don't I?
I could tell you started your weekend early, yes, sir.
It's going to be a dandy, though. But we'll see if the quarterback play with Zerick Cooper. What you know about that? Who's got the lead right now?
Well, I mean, Kelly Bryant is the guy going into camp. He'll be the guy probably going into the season. You got Zerick Cooper. You got Hunter Johnson. You got Tucker Israel all waiting in the wings. You got Chase Bryce coming in there as well. So
he can run like a deer, but we've yet to see him throw the ball.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It'll be good. It's going to be interesting. But anyway, I just wanted to say we'll take a national championship.
I got you. I hear you.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
You know, I mean, let's face it, people. Until they show us otherwise, you had a quarterback in Deshaun Watson who could do what? He could throw it in those windows. Remember when Dabo used to talk about putting the ball in those windows, those very small, tight windows, and let those outstanding receivers make the catches and make plays. And why did they make those catches and those plays? Because they had a quarterback who could put the ball in those tight windows. Now, I agree with the caller. Kelly Bryant, that I've seen to this point, I have not seen a quarterback who could throw into those windows like that. I haven't seen enough of Hunter Johnson. He did not impress me in the spring game, but that was just a spring game. Okay, I'm not gonna judge him just on that outing. I mean, if you did that, Tucker Israel would be the guy, because I think he had the best numbers in the spring game, but he's not going to be the guy. And Chase Bryce we haven't seen, and Zerick Cooper we've seen very little of. So I think Clemson is just going to have to feel its way through things early with this offense, rely on the defense. I mean, against Kent State, no problem. They might put 35, 40 points on the board in that game. They've just too much offensive personnel. But then Auburn comes to town with a pretty good defense, a very good defense. Despite losing a couple of studs up front, they'll still be very good. But an offense that, with their new quarterback, one of the best running backs in the SEC, tremendous offensive line, as I recall, up front, just a good offense. I mean, Auburn's going to be, when we get to voting at SEC Media Days, Auburn's going to be that sexy pick. That's going to be the choice of people who don't want to pick Alabama. They're going to want to pick Auburn because of the quarterback. They showed some improvement offensively last year compared to the previous year. They seem to have sorted some things out. And so I think they'll be kind of the sexy pick to win the SEC, even though the logical pick will still be Alabama without question. All right. Got time to get in recruiting here, I believe, at least start it out. We'll squeeze it in. Our big story recruiting-wise is former Auburn defensive back Marlon Character. He has enrolled at Northwest Mississippi Junior College. Of course, after he left Auburn, there was some thought that he could end up transferring directly to a South Carolina or somebody else. He was not blocked by Auburn from going anywhere, but he doesn't want to sit out another year. He was redshirted last season, so he's going to go to Northwest, play there as a safety, and then go from there. And yes, he's been in touch with USC. They haven't been, as he said to me, overdoing it, but they have been in contact and they're very interested in him when he finishes up his season at Northwest Mississippi. So he certainly could end up with the Gamecocks down the road. Remember, he committed to South Carolina coming out of Grady High School in Atlanta a couple of years ago, then decommitted and went with Auburn, where he was recruited there by Will Muschamp and Travaris Robinson, and now they're recruiting him for South Carolina. So that is where he is for this coming season. Meantime, defensive back C.J. Smith of West Palm Beach, Florida, who decommitted from Florida on Thursday, he's waiting to see which schools jump in on him for round 2 of his recruiting. He does have a USC offer, expects to hear from the Gamecocks. He also likes Clemson, or he would like Clemson to get involved and make him an offer. He's heard from Oklahoma, Baylor, North Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky. He's going to reach out to USC's Travaris Robinson if he doesn't contact him first. He will set up some official visits. USC and Clemson would be possibilities if they show the interest. USC target defensive back Trey Dean of Hampton, Georgia, was offered by Oklahoma. And we have just a couple of other notes to give you on the other side. George Bryan will join us, the full Monty on NASCAR 2. Don't leave us. We'll be back.
stop now. More sports talk is on its way. Listen to the final word in sports all across the state with your host, Phil Kornblut. Don't stop now. More sports talk is on its way. Listen to the final word in sports all across the state with your host, Phil Kornblut.
Not just your most final word in sports in South Carolina, but your most informed, most intelligent, most interactive, and when I'm here talking, your most handsome word in sports. Every night here on Sports Talk. Who would disagree with that? George Bryan III coming up in just a moment. Let me wrap up the recruiting report for tonight. So USC target defensive back Trey Dean of Hampton, Georgia, was offered by Oklahoma. Quarterback Carter Bradley of Jacksonville, Florida, had planned to attend USC's camp on the 21st, but a schedule conflict will keep him away. He remains interested in the Gamecocks, but they have not offered. Said he really likes Coach Roper when he evaluated him at his school. Longtime fan of Muschamp, too. Hopes to get to a game in the fall in Columbia. Basketball, USC offered 6'5" Aaron Neesmith of Porter Gaud. Virginia Tech also offered him yesterday. He also has offers from Austin Peay, Winthrop, Columbia, East Carolina, and Yale. Visited USC in early June. In baseball, right-hander Carter Raffield, 6'4", 215 of Cochran, Georgia, committed to Clemson. All right, there we go. With recruiting. Don't forget to check it out regularly on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and on Twitter Use the hashtag ST Recruiting. All right, time to check out those birdies and bogeys around the state of South Carolina and elsewhere. For that, we bring in the birdie man himself, George Bryan III. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Oh, I could not be better. I'm up in New York State, the western side in Buffalo at the Peak and Peak, a web.com event. And I've never been to a golf course where basically the golf shop was both the ski lodge, where the lift brings the skiers, and also the pro shop. And that's a first for me, Phil.
That must be beautiful up there.
Absolutely gorgeous. And my first visit up, we're staying with a family, a Churchill family, on Chautauqua Lake, which is not too far down in Lakeland from Peak and Peak. And this is just outside of Buffalo, a couple of hours.
Uh-huh.
And so I haven't seen the video yet, but this lake that I'm staying on, it freezes. And so basically 6 months out of the year, 6 months out of the year, they have these these recreational boat racing, and I've never seen that before.
I imagine
boat
not.
Racing on ice. I'm about to see a video though, Phil.
I bet you that's kind of sweet. So what has taken you to upstate New York for this particular event? Do we have a Bryan in the field?
Yep, G4, George 4 is in the field, and he's at 3 under par, and he'll make the cut on the number.
Wow.
So it's his first event at this level where he's made the cut. He has Latino status. We hadn't talked a whole lot about that so far, but that he played down in South America for most of the season, but he came up on a sponsor's exemption here, and the folks, this is a slice of the South in Western New York, and we're right near Lake Erie, one of the Great Lakes. But George, the golf course is unbelievable. It's on the Golf Channel, and anybody tuned in to our show needs to check out this golf course. And if you're in this area, it's well worth coming up for a visit. Peak and Peak.
Well, I am looking at his scorecard, and let's see, he shot 69 yesterday, 72 today, so that puts him at 3 under par for the tournament. And what'd you think about his day? I see where he bogeyed the 18th. Was that his last hole?
No, that was his 9th hole.
Okay.
And that was right in the middle of a little turbulence. So he's gotten a lot better. He's playing the best golf he's ever played. Ran into a little turbulence right in the middle of the round, and he withstood it. He actually came back, and his last 7 or 8 holes were really strong. And so even though he's 8 back, his game, if he putts well, you never can tell. And the players, to be at 11 under par on this golf course is extremely impressive. And Zhang, I can't even
Xinjun Zhang.
Thank you, Phil. That's why I got a radio pro on the other side of my partner.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's a Chinese. I guess is he from China?
I don't know, but I will. I'll find that out, especially if he wins.
Yeah.
But 11 under par is pretty good. And I tell you, I was looking at the.
Yeah, he is from China. He is from China.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I got to tell you, there's a guy named Jeff Gove up here. He's about 46. He played right in front. He's 46 years old. This golf course is long and hard. He's at 9 under par, just 2 shots back. So Chesson Hadley, a Georgia Tech player, he's another fine young fella. He's at a couple shots back. Kid named Albertson, from Georgia Tech, a couple of shots back.
Mm-hmm.
And just watching these fellas play, they make it look really, really easy. And then we got a Clemson player in contention, Ben Martin, up on the PGA Tour. He's just a shot or 2 back. I don't know how he finished. Not good service up here, not good internet, and then I'm a high handicap when it comes to taking advantage of this technology. So,
well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to fill you in on the Greenbrier Classic. By the way, your leader there, he finished 2nd at the BMW event up in Greenville.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous. I'll get a chance. I went back out late this afternoon. There's a guy named Dudley Hart. He played the PGA Tour.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's getting ready to play the senior tour, and I went back out late just to watch this guy play because I hadn't seen him in years. He's a great guy, and he birdied the last hole to make the cut on the number.
That's fab. Now, listen, let me ask you this. GB4, what's his status on the web.com tour? What does he need to do to be in position to automatically get his card, or will he have to go to Q school again?
Well, unless he wins or places in the top, his top goal would be get to the next event. He needs to place in the top 25, and that gets him in the next week's event.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he would want to win. Say in the top 25, you are going to the next tournament. And so a number of players have gotten their status that way, and you never can tell. Maybe he will. There's a Bo Hoag's, a guy from Ohio State. I was just talking to him, and about a month ago, he got a sponsor's exemption into this tournament, but he played his way into it without having to use a sponsor's exemption based on what we just discussed, finishing the top 25.
Mm-hmm.
So golf's one of the few sports out there where literally you can qualify on Monday. I mean, Phil, you could enter the event on Monday. If you played well enough, you could qualify and make it you could play in the actual event.
Yeah.
It's truly an open sport.
Knowing my game the way you do, what would you say percentage or number-wise, percentage-wise, my chance of ever qualifying for a PGA Tour event?
Well, if you're sitting in that broadcast booth, it's about 99 to 100%. But if you've actually got to do it, 0.
That's right. My talking game is much better than my playing game. Ben Martin had a 67 today. He's 9 under, tied for second, 3 back of Sebastian Munoz. Now, he was tied for 5th last week up in the D.C. area. Ben's finding his game now all of a sudden.
Ben always plays well in the summer, and he's probably one of the coolest, most patient young men on the PGA Tour. And he was until last week. He was in a little turbulence as far as securing his privileges for next year. So you've got to finish in the top 125 on the FedEx points list to have full exempt status. And he made a big chunk of it last week. And my guess is he's going to play well on the weekend, and hopefully he wins, taking care of his next 2 years.
Yeah.
So
can you hang on a second, George? Got a couple more questions for you.
Certainly.
Thank you. And we'll catch up on any local knowledge that you want to share with us, local being around the state of South Carolina. GB3, who's up with GB4, with us here on Sports Talk, little birdies and bogeys around the Palmetto State. Back in a moment. We are back, Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network here on a Friday. Great time of the year to be talking golf, of course. We go back to GB3 for a couple of more minutes of birdies and bogeys from the state of South Carolina and beyond. I mentioned this earlier, George. You probably read it. Article in Sports Illustrated in the last couple of weeks on the Johnson boys, Dustin and Austin. Great piece written on those two guys and about their relationship and how it's working so well for DJ on the PGA Tour. How well did you know those two growing up? Because the writer mentions a lot of familiar places around the Irmo area where these guys used to play golf and practice golf and things like that. And made me think about you and wondering how well you knew those two growing up.
Well, I knew them extremely well. They participated in the Tri-County chapter. I watched them grow up. Their daddy and I actually not just played golf together, but we played baseball together in high school. So we watched them from the time I watched Dustin get started at Mid Carolina Club when the golf bag he was using exceeded his height. So yeah, and then watched him right on up. He and George played 1 year of high school golf at Dutch Fork together. But incidentally, their coach, I'll tell you what, he's awesome. Their high school golf coach, Coach Mark, and and Austin. Hey, here's the thing, Austin he could easily be on the PGA Tour also.
Really?
He is that good.
He is that good.
He's an ultra athlete, and they talk all the time about how great an athlete Dustin is, but Austin played actual college basketball, and Austin could be out there as well. So, yeah, there's absolutely, when it comes to golf, there's nobody I've seen do it quite like Dustin yet, and he plays absolutely with no fear, and he just drives his ball as straight and solid as long as anybody I've ever seen. So, no telling really what he's going to do with the game. No telling.
If he were not a great on the PGA Tour, if he had gone another direction sports-wise, where do you think he would have gone?
Dustin?
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you what. That's a lot of people talk about it. He played other sports, and yeah, he was a great athlete, but golf was what he focused on, and he you know, I can't attest to his athletic skills in other sports, but I really can't. But I do know Austin. Austin now, on the other hand, he was spectacular. And I know their daddy. I watched their daddy play baseball, basketball, football. And my guess is Dustin can play anything he wanted to based on his daddy's skill.
Yeah.
So Scott Johnson was a PGA professional and just unbelievable athlete in his own right.
All right. Lastly here, when does Wesley return to the tour?
He gets started next week at the John Deere, and I'm just gonna hate it because I can't go out and look at all those tractors. That's really my passion. I love tractors, but I don't.
Wait a minute. Whoa. Back up. I mean, is that like are you being funny, or do you really have this passion for tractors?
Oh, I love tractors. That's one of my favorite things to do is to go out in my backyard and in my wedge range and play tractor. So. Yeah, I couldn't ride by a farm equipment place without stopping for a lot of years. I can now, though.
Okay, you've been treated. You've gotten past that. So now, what? Fill me in. Is he in the Open, or does he still have to do something to get in the Open? He is in the Open.
No, he's in, and he'll leave from John Deere and go there, and that's pretty exciting. So,
are you going across? Are you going across the big pond?
I'm thinking myself, Andy Ferris and I are talking about doing it, and he's a retired airline pilot, and so we're thinking about it right now, Phil. I'll let you know next week.
I greatly encourage you, because it would be splendid to have you on from. Where is it this year? Where is it?
I'm locked up.
Yeah.
I just locked up on the air. But I tell you what I remember is the last time I was abroad and I did this show, I got gnawed on.
I know you did.
The there was a time problem, and so we were in a different time zone. I woke everybody up on the floor, and I got just about, I mean, I was definitely cussed out on the air.
Royal Birkdale. It's at Royal Birkdale.
Yeah, so, yeah, I look forward to being over there. And I got to tell you, I was looking at the leaderboard. I'm going to shift gears. Jonathan Bird is at 1 under par. I want to recognize Mark Anderson. Got a Tiger and Bird, Gamecock and Anderson. And then Bill Haas and Tommy Gainey. Tommy Gainey's in the event at -2. Bill Haas from Greenville is at -2 also.
Well, you know, for Two Gloves, I think this is his return event to the tour, and he's going to make some money. He's going to make the cut and earn a check this weekend.
And that'll be fun to watch. I can't. I hope their weather's as good as ours forecast. That's going to be fun. We need to be watching TV.
Plenty of that. George, we'll let you go. Enjoy yourself. You're up there in that's wine country too, isn't it? Western New York.
Oh, it is. It certainly. How'd you know that?
Well, I've been up that way. I've driven that route. I think it's I-90 from Cleveland over to Buffalo into Western New York over to Niagara.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So go squeeze yourself some fresh grapes and enjoy yourself.
Sounds like a good idea. You tee them high. I look forward to next week, and we'll shoot them low.
Okay, my man. Thank you. GB3, George Bryan III, some birdies and bogeys from here in the state and points elsewhere. It's great having George with us and having his sons involved on the professional tours now. Good to hear that GB4 is doing well and playing well in the web.com tour event and has a chance. And then Wesley returns next week, and then it's the Open at Royal Birkdale. That's the next stop on the rotation there for the British Open. In case you're wondering, their address is Waterloo Road, Southport. I'm just reading here off Wikipedia or whatever. This is their website, the Open website. Okay. I'm not even sure what this 10th time Royal Birkdale has hosted the event. Just looking at some pictures. And it's a links course, no doubt about that. No trees in sight, a lot of dunes, a lot of heavy stuff if you miss the fairway. And where is Royal Birkdale? It's like all their courses in the rotation. It's by a big body of water. I should know my geography better. Pat, you have any idea where Royal Birkdale is? Southport, England. Okay, so it's near, obviously, a body of water, and if the weather gets a little bit nasty, it could certainly affect things. Royal Birkdale sits on a stretch of beautiful links land that runs almost uninterrupted for 20 miles north of Liverpool. I wonder if the Beatles ever played golf there. That'd be kind of neat. All right, so we look forward to that and continuing to follow the PGA Tour and the golf events here around the state of South Carolina through our man George Bryan III. Okay, we've got Monty Dutton coming up, the full Monty on NASCAR. I have a feeling that did it start raining? Yeah, it started raining at Kentucky. I don't know. They got the rest of qualifying in. They may have final round of qualifying has been canceled due to inclement weather. So I guess Kyle Busch will be on the pole since he had the best speed going into the last round. Martin Truex Jr., Matt Kenseth, Jamie McMurray, and Denny Hamlin. One thing we'll talk with Monty about is the drought for the Joe Gibbs Racing team so far this season. Kenseth, Hamlin, and nobody on that team's got a win yet. That's 11 different winners so far this year. 8 different teams, 8 different organizations have at least one win, but Joe Gibbs Racing has 0. You know that's going to come to an end soon, maybe this weekend at Kentucky tomorrow night. We'll talk with Monty about that coming up.
The latest on this weekend's race is around the corner. The full Monty on NASCAR is next. The latest on this weekend's race is around the corner. The full Monty on NASCAR is next. This is Sports Talk.
And let's welcome in Monty Dutton of MontyDutton.com, NASCAR expert, former sports writer covering NASCAR, many other sports, now a renowned author of many novels, great reads. We'll tell you more about that in a moment. Welcome in, Monty. Looks like the rain has moved into northern Kentucky, washing out the last round of qualifying that was ongoing when the rains hit. And also, looks like they've postponed the Xfinity race as well, which I guess was scheduled for tonight. They've postponed that till noon tomorrow. So what does this mean now? I guess all the practice that they got in today with this rain moving in washes the track clean. Does it change a lot of things?
It adds more uncertainty. I think it plays into the hands of the people who have setups that are prepared every week and have a good baseline to begin with. There's a lot of odd little wrinkles here. For instance, there's been something of a controversy. This track is one of those that has been repaved not too long ago, I think before last year, and to try to make it where it's better racing, they've taken tires and drugged across it. They have this machine they call, I have to laugh, a tire dragon, because it drags tires.
A tire dragon?
Yeah, a tire dragon, because they're dragging tires.
Yeah, I get it. That's good.
Yeah,
That's
well, good. It's one of those only in NASCAR things.
Yeah.
But so they drove those around the bottom of the track, and a lot of drivers said, well, there's already grip there. It's that you can't race anywhere else, so why didn't you do that around the top of the track? And the track made a comment that, we assure you, we know what we're doing. And a lot of the drivers ridiculed that on Twitter. And then the next thing you know, they've decided that after they knew what they were doing, they decided to do that again. Well, all this bad weather sort of offsets what they do. Now, you can tell where they have drugged the track. If you just look at it, you can see a darker band around the track, all the way around the track, that comes from that tire dragon. And so that throws that up in the air a little bit. There was a good truck race last night. I thought it was a pretty good event, and it's a shame. And now the Xfinity race will be run at noon tomorrow, and the Cup race tomorrow night. But they've had a lot. They had the truck race was delayed for hours.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't over after midnight because it rained yesterday. So that's the thing. I think that it's I've been agonizing all day. Usually I don't even think about who I'm going to pick to win. But I said, well, darn it, I'm going to pick Larson. Well, he didn't get through inspection. He's starting last. And then Kyle Busch is on the pole. But I've picked Kyle Busch till I've just decided he's going to win before I pick him again.
Uh-huh.
So then I was going to go with – I've decided now that since everything's been rained out, when in doubt, go with Jimmy Johnson.
Always a solid pick. But you know who I'm going to pick? I'm going to pick Matt Kenseth because
I almost did that. He qualified a little better than me too.
Yeah, but I'm thinking somebody from Joe Gibbs Racing is going to win here at some point in time. And Kenseth and Kyle Busch and Kenseth, in terms of careers at that track, both have very, very good records. And why not Matt Kenseth? Why not Gibbs Racing this weekend? It's time for them.
Matt Kenseth, of course, he's getting up in age. He probably doesn't have a lot of his career left. But the fact is, there isn't anyone I don't think who's been more unappreciated. Matt Kenseth sort of reminds me of the Terry Labonte of his day,
mm-hmm.
because he's sort of a driver's driver, with the exception of him taking care of Logano 2 years ago in the chase. He's generally been one of those guys that is the most trusted and reliable of his peers. Not only that, he's had a rap for being Mr. Consistency. But, in his career, he had 1 year in which he won 7 races and another year in which he won 6 in a single season. So that rap, that's all based on the fact that his one championship came when he only won 1 race during the season. And so I think that he probably is among the more underrated drivers of his generation.
Yeah. It's the full Monty on NASCAR. Let's flash back to last Saturday, the race at Daytona, and typical Daytona Talladega. The only problem with this is the races that those two tracks are so predictable. And does it not kind of bore you that they're so predictable? You're going to have tight racing. It's going to be all bunched together for all these laps, and you're going to get something late to cause a restart, and then there's going to be a big crash on the restart. Then they're going to have to go into overtime and da-da-da-da-da. Those races are just so predictable. That's why I don't like restricted plate racing.
Is that what you're saying really is they're predictably unpredictable. Because like when you're watching it, it's like you're watching a parking lot going 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And and you're going like, that guy's wobbling. Oh, this is a problem. And so it's like a wreck could happen at any time. And then waiting for the wreck actually gets where you're seeing nothing but the same thing.
Yeah.
It's sort of predictably unpredictable. Yeah, I know. I get you. I get you where you're coming from.
Yeah, and it always results in, well, not always, but oftentimes results in an unknown guy who's really not one of the best drivers on the circuit getting a win. It's.
Well, I think it's easier to make you're driving cars that are going probably 35 miles an hour slower than they could be going if their horsepower wasn't restricted. And so I think it makes it easier to make cars that don't have that much money competitive with the others, because there aren't all the handling, sophisticated handling things that come into play.
So without the restrictor plates, you think they'd be running 225, 230?
Well, when you think that in 1987 they ran 212,
mm-hmm.
30 years ago.
Right.
And then, the actual top speed of the cars was greater back in even the 70s, because they had these gigantic, big old cars with huge engines, but the cars didn't run near as fast through the turns, and now they're so fast around the turns that at a high rate of speed, if they were unrestricted, yeah, I think they would run 225.
And they could never keep them on the ground then if something were to happen.
Well, that's the reason it's the way it is.
Yeah. Well, you saw technology come into play late in that race the other night, because who was it that got airborne and the flaps on the roof came up and kept him down on the ground, or got him back down on the ground pretty quickly, and everything was everybody got through it okay. It could have been a disaster.
I believe that was Kyle Larson.
Yeah, probably was. Now back to Kentucky, and what are the characteristics of this track that the crew chiefs have to deal with in getting their cars set up properly?
Well, Kentucky is lower banked than many of the intermediate tracks. It is also extraordinarily wide. And so I think it is if you accept the fact that all these 1.5 mile tracks are different at all, I think it is sort of more of a breed apart. And it's also the fact that they've only been racing there in the truck level since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So there haven't been that many chances for people to win. And that was one of the reasons I thought that it's one of the almost zero tracks where Johnson has never won. And so, you figure he's the way 7 champions and all that, he's filled in most of the blank spots. So, but I think just the uncertainty of the way the weather is messed with the schedule and then the certain changes, I think that unlike Daytona, where anyone can win, who in the world would have believed that Ricky Stenhouse would have not 1, but 2 wins so far?
Mm-hmm.
With the sort of unpredictability, as we said, the predictable unpredictability of Daytona, I think this race is probably going to come down to the people who are good every week. I think that Truex and Kevin Harvick, and if Larson can get through the pack without getting involved in a wreck, he'll be there. I think that the people who are normally fast will be fast this time, and I do think that there's an excellent chance Kyle Busch, who has been strong there before. Another guy who's really good at that track is Brad Keselowski.
Yeah,
he's another guy. Even though one of my picks this year that was correct was his, he's one of those guys I picked till I'm blue in the face, so I'm going to give it a break.
All right, Monty. Thank you, my friend. Monty Dutton. Check him out on his website, his blog, montydutton.com. Back in a moment. We are back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Thanks again to Monty Dutton for joining us. Always enjoy talking NASCAR, talking racing with an expert, the full Monty on NASCAR. If you want to join us, 800-956-7266. Don't forget, once again, after the show tonight on Twitter, at our Twitter page, at SportsTalkSC, we'll do a little Sports Talk post-game with you on Twitter. Talk about the show, the good, the bad, the ugly. If you have any comments you want to send to us via Twitter, then be happy to take those on and respond. We'll do about 5 minutes. If nobody is participating, we'll do less than that. But something we want to play with here on Sports Talk to expand our reach even deeper into the Twitter world for those of you who kind of live on Twitter and on nothing else. That'll be coming up within a couple of minutes at the end of the show. 800-956-7266. Did you get your Ben Martin stuff lined up there, Pat? If you can, let me know, and we'll bring a little Ben Martin to you from PGA Tour Radio and his comments after his 67 today. I always like to give the locals some airtime when they do well. In the meantime, while that's getting put together, an email to us from Miles up in Spartanburg referring to our conversation last night about the story by Jeff Hartzell in the Charleston Post and Courier regarding this rule in September by South Carolina Youth Soccer that everybody be silent during these youth soccer games. And everything that went into that is pretty silly, if you ask me, as we discussed it last night. But anyway, Miles writes to us, I was shocked to hear a comment from me on Sports Talk. The topic was the new policy of youth soccer to try to tone down parental commentary from the sideline. Whether the new policy is realistic or not is irrelevant to me, he writes. The comment made on the show after the discussion was what shocked me. One of the commentators, Phil, I think, but I'm not sure, said, and not as a joke, they should ban the sport, let them play real football. Well, that was me that said that, I'm sure. And I did say it as a joke, so you missed my humor there. Anyway, he writes, folks, y'all can do better than that. My son-in-law is a soccer coach. And while I'm no diehard soccer fan, I do appreciate the sport. I promise you that more young people play it than, quote, real football in this state. That statement should be reviewed by the show. So anyway, it was a joke, of course. I'm not going to ban soccer. I'm not a big soccer fan. I know soccer coaches. I think the world of some of the people that I know who coach soccer or play soccer. They're great athletes, don't get me wrong. It's just not a sport that has ever grabbed my attention. I'm just speaking for me. And then when I read that story from yesterday and the approach to everything, it just is silly. It's just silly. Well, first of all, what got me was that they're not putting the responsibility on the parents to police themselves. They've got all these other layers of enforcement besides where the enforcement should start and end with the parents themselves. That's what I was getting at. So it was a joke, sir, but thank you very much. Appreciate it. Also want to mention this out of Clemson. Catcher infielder Chris Williams and right-hander Ryan Miller will both return to Clemson for the next baseball season. They were taken in the draft, back-to-back picks in the 31st round, Williams by the Rays, Miller by the Braves, both elected to return to Clemson. That's big, especially, well, both are big. Miller's a hard thrower, Williams, excellent catcher and hitter for the Tigers when healthy. Tigers signees Sam Weatherly, Kier Meredith, and Spencer Strider will also forego signing with their teams and join the Tigers in 2018. Weatherly, 27th round by the Blue Jays, Meredith, 28th round by the Cubs, and Strider, a 35th round pick. So that's good news for Clemson baseball there. Speaking of Clemson, Ben Martin, the Tiger grad, on the prowl once again on the PGA Tour. He sits in a tie for second place after 2 rounds of the Greenbrier Classic up in West Virginia. Here he is talking on PGA Tour Radio about having to really kind of grind one out today to put together a good round.
today's second round?
I got off to a good start, Birdie, the first hole, but I didn't feel like I had the control that I had yesterday. So I made some good par saves. I think the one on 3 really stood out of the bunker and then made a nice one on 5, the last birdie of the day. So it was nice to feel like I grinded out a little more yesterday. It felt easy. But anytime you walk away with a 67, it's a good day.
It seemed like watching the broadcast, a lot of guys were grinding today. How different were the conditions from Thursday to Friday?
Yeah, I got to play in the morning yesterday. It was really soft. Ball was kind of sitting right where it landed, but water's starting to drain off the course and it's starting to bounce out a little bit. And with the new greens, they're pretty firm, and so it's getting a little bit tougher out there. The wind picked up a little bit. It was kind of back and forth, so definitely starting to play a little more difficult than it did for me yesterday morning.
All right, Ben Martin, some comments from him after his round today. Again, he's tied for second, 67 today, and is in great shape going into the weekend. Braves have taken a 1-0 lead on Washington as they're going to the bottom of the 4th. Braves are facing Max Scherzer. Never easy to score off of him, and they just got a run a little while ago. Also want to mention that New York and Milwaukee playing tonight at Yankee Stadium, and it's Jordan Montgomery on the mound tonight for the Yankees. If you have MLB television on your television in some form or fashion, that game is on MLB TV tonight. It's their Friday night game of the week, so you can watch Jordan Montgomery work. And so far, through 3 innings, he's allowed 1 hit. I'm sorry, he's allowed 3 hits. It's the Yankees who have 1 hit. He's allowed 3 hits. Yankees have 1 hit. I wonder if that's a home run by anybody. Let me check. See if I can pull that up real quick. I don't think the judge went deep again, do you? Be kind of neat if he did. That'd give him 30 home runs. Oh, it was a sacrifice fly to right by Frazier. How do you know all this so fast, Pat? You're just so much ahead of me. Yeah, you are technologically advanced. I get that. So it's 1-0 Yankees on top of Milwaukee. You know who's had a good first half of the season, power-wise, is Brett Gardner. He's got 15 home runs at this point, batting average at around 260. It's funny. His batting average has never been consistently high. We're talking 300 plus, but he has hit for power at times during his career. He had 1 season of over 20 homers. He's going to probably do that again this year. All right, give you some other major league scores here as the games are getting underway around the country tonight. Boy, the Astros. Can anybody derail the Astros? 8-0 already in the top of the 2nd inning against the Blue Jays with a 6-run 2nd inning for Houston. Really, really good team. Padres lead the Phillies 3-1. That's in the 5th inning. Red Sox on top of the Rays 4-0. That's in the 3rd inning. Tigers and Indians, they're scoreless in the 3rd inning. It's Angels and Rangers just about to get underway. Same with the Orioles and the Twins. Everything else comes up a little bit later on. And let's see if there's anything else to tell you. Yes, one other basketball note. Newberry basketball coach Dave Davis signed 6'8" Max Miller. He's out of Rockton, Illinois. He averaged 12 points and 7 rebounds per game last season. All right, that will do it. A reminder coming up a couple of minutes on our Twitter page, Sports Talk Post Game. Check it out if you want. And then, of course, next week, I will be at the SEC Media Days Monday through Thursday. Jared will be at ACC Media Days Thursday and Friday. Pat will be here some of the week, and we'll tell you later next week about our special guest host on Friday. I think you'll be pleased. That will do it. Have a great weekend. Thanks to all of you for being with us. Thank you, Pat Daniel. We'll see you next week here on Sports Talk.